Next today here on Channel 4, we join the nation with a minute's silence in tribute to His Royal Highness Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh.
Simba Hybrid Mattress sponsors escapism on 4. Engineered to entertain.
Ignition start.
Neil, if this flight is successful, you'll go down in history.
We're planning on that flight being successful.
Liftoff.
We have serious problems. We need to fail down here so we don't fail up there.
Do you think you're coming back?
We've got this under control.
You're a bunch of boys. You don't have anything under control.
The network premiere of the award-winning First Man, tonight at 9 on Channel 4.
Now on Channel 4, a minute's silence in tribute to His Royal Highness Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh.
Good afternoon and welcome to Windsor. This is a special short bulletin to mark the National Minute silence ahead of the funeral of His Royal Highness Prince Philip. The Queen will be joined by other senior members of the royal family in St George's Chapel, which is right behind me here at Windsor Castle. The service has been downsized thanks to COVID. It'll begin after a minute's silence, one that will be marked across the country and indeed many other places around the world. This will be the final farewell for a man who has stood at the monarch's side for over 70 years. The Prince's lifelong connection with the armed forces will be central to today's events, with hundreds of soldiers, seamen, airmen and women taking part in the commemorations. Prince Philip's funeral service will take place in St George's Chapel here within Windsor Castle. Today the Queen will lead a total of only 30 guests in mourning her husband, the Duke of Edinburgh. Were it not for the rules surrounding funerals due to the coronavirus pandemic, we might have expected to see a crowd of 800 people here today. Earlier on, we saw the Royal Horse Artillery, the battery that will herald the minute's silence, taking their positions outside the castle gates. The chapel dates from the 15th century and has been the site of many royal services over the years. Prince Philip, whose mantra was "getting stuff done," meticulously planned his own funeral, including designing the Land Rover turned hearse that has been carrying his coffin. The mourners will hear hymns sung by a small choir, but again the pandemic means that congregations are not allowed to sing, and the Queen, now a widow, will sit by herself. The service will end with the Duke's coffin being lowered into the royal vault below the chapel. Today we will see for the first time the Queen by herself without her husband of 73 years, an extraordinary achievement by any measure. In 1997, to mark their royal golden wedding anniversary, the Queen described the Prince as her strength and stay. Overnight, the palace released an image taken in 2003 in the Scottish Highlands of the royal capital on holiday in a relaxed mood. It was taken by the Queen's daughter-in-law, the Countess of Wessex, and is said to be one of the Queen's favourite pictures of her late husband. It is quieter here than it would have been under normal circumstances. A beautiful spring day, but one of glaring absences. Because of COVID, people have been urged to stay away. The world's press has arrived, but largely speaking, the public have taken those instructions to stay away to heart. It might be said that the largest group here are members of the media, broadcasters, and indeed security. Well, I'm now joined by historian James Holland. James, military overtones in this very solemn funeral. Why?
Well, of course, he had great associations with the British Armed Forces, career in the Navy of spanned 14 years, incredible service during the Second World War, but also a number of appointments across those armed services, both in the Army and the RAF.
And just explain to us the importance of him, I mean, his own kind of personal history in the Navy in the Second World War, the importance of service in his life.
Well, it's something that he felt very strongly about. I mean, he felt he was born to serve. He was serving in the Royal Navy, and then his job was to serve as the Queen's husband and give her all the support he possibly could. And it's something he took incredibly seriously. He was a very forward-thinking person, and this is reflected in the funeral, I think, as well, from the Land Rover hearse to other little features about it. But he was a man who was absolutely dedicated to his role and dedicated to the country.
That makes him sound, very upright and a little bit stuffy, but he actually had a great sense of humour. And, there's a poster just down the road on the high street of his face, very large, with a real twinkle in his eye. There's a twinkle in the eye with this funeral as well, isn't there?
Yeah, I think so. And I think just from the Land Rover alone, that's rather...
Which he redesigned.
He redesigned. He gave his gave his own patronage to Land Rover some 43 years ago.
Why a Land Rover?
Well, because he loved driving them, didn't he? He was very keen on driving and being outdoors and active, and that's the sort of thing you would have used on the estate at Sandringham or in Balmoral, all around the mountains there. But it's sort of down key, isn't it? It's not ostentatious. It's reflective of that idea that it's not about him. He was always kind of very, very wary about talking about himself and pushing his own self forward. He didn't like to shoot a line, as they used to say in the military.
Don't want to talk too much about Land Rovers, but I read somewhere that the Queen also has designed her own Land Rover for use in Balmoral with windscreen wipers on the inside because of the condensation of all the corgis in the car. True or false?
I don't know.
Okay. All right.
But I'd like to think it's true.
I mean, it is a solemn occasion, especially for the family, especially for the Queen, who is now a widow. How do you think she will cope by herself?
Well, it's going to be very difficult, and how can anyone not let their heart go out to her on this moment? She first fell in love with the Prince apparently when she was 13, got married at 21. They've been together ever since. Now he's passed away, age 99. She's in her 90s as well. I mean, that is such a long time together, and suddenly she's alone. I think she'll take great solace from her faith. I think she'll take great solace from that sense of duty that we talked about in relation to Prince Philip. It's about carrying on, getting on with the job, and I don't think she'll stint in that in any way whatsoever. But it'll be difficult for her, of course.
I mean, it is extraordinary. Normally you would expect many more people in Windsor just on an ordinary day, and it's deserted. And then behind these walls and behind this gate, this solemn ceremony is about to start. But before it does, it's the minute's silence, which is about to begin, I think, in the next few seconds. So let's just stay silent ourselves and listen to that. That was the minute's silence in honour of Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, whose funeral service is being held at St George's Chapel here at Windsor Castle right now. James Holland, the historian, is with me. James, just to see those pictures of a downsized congregation, only 30 mourners, all standing apart, 2 metres apart because of social distancing. It is extraordinary, is it not? The Queen with the mask on inside the chapel.
Yeah, it really, really is. But dare I say it, it's all the more moving, I think, in a way, because it's downsized. I mean, I'm feeling moved, certainly. And seeing them all there, the solemnity with which they marched down just before the silence, it was incredible scenes, really. And
yet what's so strange about this family, which has to be the most scrutinised family on the planet, I mean, more than the family of the President of the United States, for years upon years, they've had all this scrutiny. This is a very private event. It's full of very private grief and some private issues to be ironed out, but the world is watching. How bizarre.
Yeah, absolutely. But they just, Britain does this stuff so well, and I think it's lovely that he's designed his own funeral, that it's got his own mark on it. You know, he was always his own man. You know, he came to the job as consort of the Queen, and he had to create a role for himself. And boy, did he do that! You know, with all his charities, with sort of, you know, over 800 charities that he was involved with, the World Wildlife Fund, the Duke of Edinburgh, so many different things. And now in this final act, he's done his funeral as well.
Just explain to those who don't already know why, although this has military overtones, and in most public occasions when you see the royal family turning up, they all wear their mess uniforms, the men. Not in this case. Why?
Well, we've got two senior members of the royal family who are no longer active parts of the military in any shape or form, Prince Andrew and, of course, Prince Harry. And this is about unity this week. This is what the Queen has said. She doesn't want any spats, doesn't want any royal soap opera. She wants everyone to be as one, and so they're all wearing the same outfits.
Unity in terms of the dress code, but we didn't see Prince William and Prince Harry walk side by side. That was in the original plan for the funeral that the Prince himself had designed.
Well, you know, grief does strange things, and let's hope that this chance for them to actually be together is an opportunity for also them to sort of put some of their differences aside and move forward, because the royal family does have to move forward. You know, a line has been drawn with the passing of Prince Philip, and they need to get on. You know, they need to, for the sake of the nation, for the sake of their own family, they need to move on.
James Holland, thank you very much. We'll be speaking later again. And we will be back here in Windsor Castle later today for our news bulletin for this special National Minute Silence, which you just heard, but also, of course, the full coverage of the funeral, the royal funeral of the Duke of Edinburgh at 5:45. Until then, good afternoon.